Russia says sending international peacekeepers to Ukraine would be very reckless. Russia on Wednesday condemned what it called a reckless Polish proposal to send international peacekeepers into Ukraine and warned that it could lead to a direct clash between Russian and NATO forces. Poland said last Friday it would formally submit a proposal for a peacekeeping mission in Ukraine at the next NATO summit. Asked about the initiative, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said, "It would be a very reckless and extremely dangerous decision." He told reporters on a conference call that any possible contact between Russian and NATO forces could have clear consequences that would be hard to repair. Russia sent tens of thousands of troops into Ukraine on February 24 in what it called a special operation to degrade its southern neighbor's military capabilities and root out people it called dangerous nationalists. Ukrainian forces have mounted stiff resistance, and the West has imposed sweeping sanctions on Russia in an effort to force it to withdraw its forces. Speaking in Kiev last week, Poland's ruling party leader Yaroslaw Kaczynski said, "I think that it is necessary to have a peace mission NATO, possibly some wider international structure, but a mission that will be able to defend itself, which will operate on Ukrainian territory." Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also attacked the proposal in remarks to staff and students at the Moscow State Institute of International Relations on Wednesday. This will be the direct clash between the Russian and NATO armed forces that everyone has not only tried to avoid, but said should not take place in principle, he said.
President Joe Biden departs for Brussels on Wednesday for talks with European leaders about Russia's invasion of Ukraine, carrying with him plans for more sanctions on Moscow that sources said include members of the Russian parliament. Biden leaves the White House at 8:40 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on a trip that will include talks in Brussels with NATO and European leaders, and a visit to Warsaw for consultations with Polish President Andrzej Duda. Two sources familiar with the situation said Biden and his team were developing plans to impose sanctions on members of the Russian parliament, the Duma, in retaliation for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The sanctions are expected to be announced on Thursday. The Wall Street Journal said 300 members of the Duma could face sanctions. A White House spokesperson said, "No final decisions have been made about who we will sanction and how many we will sanction. We will have additional sanctions measures to announce that will rolled out in conjunction with our allies on Thursday when the president has the opportunity to speak with them," the official said. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told reporters on Tuesday that Biden on Thursday will attend an emergency NATO summit, meet with G7 leaders and address the 27 leaders of the European Union at a session of the European Council. Biden will coordinate on the next phase of military assistance to Ukraine, said Sullivan. In addition to imposing fresh sanctions on Russia, Biden will work with U.S. allies to tighten existing sanctions to crack down on evasion and to ensure robust enforcement, Sullivan said. Biden has vowed not to engage in direct conflict with Russia but has pledged the United States will defend all NATO territory. He has ordered more U.S. troops to NATO's eastern flank to reassure those edgy allies. During his visit to Poland, Biden will visit U.S. troops and meet with experts involved in the humanitarian response to helping hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians who have fled their country and those who remain there.
Russia combat power declines in Ukraine as war takes toll, U.S. official says. Russia's combat power in Ukraine has declined below 90% of its pre-invasion levels for the first time since its attack began, a senior U.S. defense official said on Tuesday, suggesting heavy losses of weaponry and growing casualties. The United States has estimated Russia assembled more than 150,000 troops around Ukraine before the February 24 invasion, along with enough aircraft, artillery, tanks and other firepower for its full-scale attack. For the first time they may be just a little bit below 90%, the U.S. defense official told reporters on condition of anonymity. The official did not provide evidence. Nearly a month into the war, Russian troops have failed to capture a single major city, and their advance has been halted on nearly all fronts by Ukrainian forces. Moscow has instead turned to bombarding cities with artillery, missiles and bombs. Russia denies targeting civilians. Much of that bombardment has been focused on the southeastern city of Mariupol. The senior U.S. official said Russian naval forces have likely been firing into Mariupol from the Sea of Azov over the past 24 hours. That wasn't the case yesterday, the official said. Russia has not officially updated its casualty figures since stating on March 2 that 498 servicemen had been killed and 1,597 wounded. But since then its offensive has run into further heavy resistance from Ukraine's army and volunteer defense forces. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan estimated on Tuesday the number of Russian casualties was in the thousands but declined to offer a precise figure. As the conflict takes its toll, the United States has warned that Russia might seek assistance from China. Still, the White House said on Tuesday it had not seen any evidence of China providing military equipment to Russia. The U.S. official suggested that there were no indications Russia was yet pulling additional supplies into Ukraine. But we do continue to see indications that they are having these discussions, and that they are making those kinds of plans both in terms of resupply and also reinforcement, the official said. Putin's incursion into Ukraine has forced more than 3.5 million to flee, brought the unprecedented isolation of Russia's economy as Western nations imposed sanctions, and raised fears of wider conflict in the West unthought of for decades. Putin calls the conflict a special military operation to demilitarize Ukraine and replace its pro-Western leadership, and says it's going to plan